Miami at Baltimore. This is the battle for the number 1 seed. Is there anyone that you're nervous about starting this week in this matchup?
It's going to sound like I'm coming purely from a place of being a Raven, but I'm a little bit nervous about Tyreek Hill. I think he's clearly not 100%. With Jalen Waddle being reported that he's probably not going to face the Ravens this week, it's going to be so much easier for the Ravens to key in on Tyreek Hill, who between weeks 1 to 13 was averaging 4.8 yards per route. But over the last two, it's dropped to 2.6. Like, that's a huge difference. He hasn't been finishing right up there. He's had 2 straight games outside the top 15 wide receivers each week. And I just worry that if Jalen Waddle's not out there, the Ravens are going to be able to just lean enough coverage towards Hill that he isn't going to deliver in the biggest spot that we want. Tua hasn't been delivering from fantasy perspective. He's in his last 3 been the QB 21, the QB 22, and QB 21. That's fine if you're in a super flex and you're looking for your QB 2. But in championship weekend, that's not delivering the kind of ceiling we'd hope for. We just saw what this Ravens defense did to Brock Purdy. I think, we can definitely draw parallels between the Miami offense and the 49ers. Mike McDonald's defense is absolutely cooking. The amount of times that they put Brock Purdy in a blender last week, I'm not sure that I have the faith in Tua to be able to deal with that. But what we have seen is that the Ravens defense is struggling against the run. Despite having Patrick Queen and despite having Roquan Smith, there are ways that you can get at them across the run. Like, Achane, not been in the top 20 finishes in his last 3 games, but this feels like the game that can set up well for him. Because you look at the running backs who've had real success against the Ravens this year. Kyron Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, and CMC. All of those kind of explosive players, all of those players who are going to play a little bit in the pass-catching role, and not necessarily the big bruiser running backs who the Ravens do have the defensive line to stop. So I think Devon Achane can really, they've been holding him back at times. They've not been giving him lots of touches. And if this is the reason why, this kind of big game with the number 1 seed on the line, then I think if you need to shoot for ceiling, then Devon Achane, someone I would have complete faith putting in. Over on the Ravens side of things, Lamar Jackson, the last 3, he's been the QB1 overall, QB9, QB8, and it just seems like he's feeling very comfortable in this offense at this point. Zay Flowers coming into this game after a 38% target share against the Niners, career high 13 targets. He went 72 and a touchdown, and the touchdown was one of the best play designs I saw last week. Zay Flowers now, earlier on in the season, it was tricky starting him because you were looking at getting like wide receiver 40 returns a lot of the time. But he's been a top 15 wide receiver in 3 of the last 4. And I feel like the way that he can separate and move is going to be fine against Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. Gus Edwards, I do have a few concerns about him. He looked better against the Niners than he's done in recent weeks. But he's now 5 straight games without averaging over 3.6 yards per carry. They need that explosivity if they're going to take on offenses and defenses like the Dolphins, who've been playing excellently lately. Outside of them, I think you start Isaiah Likely. I think you can start Raheem Mostert as well, but it's a bit more condensed than we might have thought it would be. Odell Beckham's kind of reverted to being the Ravens' deep threat at the minute. And Rashad Bateman is working a bit more in the intermediary area, but I don't think you could start either of them unless you really need an absolute dart throw.
No, I think we talk about these matchups every week, Tom, and look, we never sit here and break down offensive line, defensive line tendencies and things like that, but I think the key for this game is the Miami's interior run blocking, quite frankly. We know that Connor Williams is on IR. They've got Liam Eichenberg, who came into the league as potentially a tackle, got shifted inside, is now playing center. He's PFF's 36th out of 37th ranked center currently. Their 2 guards are both injured. I think that is going to be hugely critical to how they can hold up both in the passing game. We know that Tua gets the ball out quickly, but pressure directly in your face through the middle is sometimes where Tua struggles. But I think in the run game, we know that the Ravens are going to be smart enough to set the edge. You've got Clowney, you've got OA. We're going to try and set the edge and force the Dolphins to try and run the ball between the tackles. And I don't know if those three interior blockers for the Dolphins are going to be able to hold up. So I think it's fascinating to see what sort of schematic tweaks, shall we say, Daniel's coming up with to hopefully create some fantasy relevancy for Chen and Mostert. But I think that's going to be a fascinating matchup to certainly watch come Sunday. Before we move on to our next matchup, help us with our goal. Tom and I sat down and we said we want to hit 1,500 subscribers by the end of the season. We are so close. We are so close. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, go ahead, do so. Let's click subscribe right now. We have got so much planned for the off season. Do it now and it will help you later.